everyone. Thanks for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast. My name is Karina, and I am a psychic medium out of Calgary, Alberta. Today's episode is a very special one to me for many reasons. Last week, I kept having my childhood friend pop into my mind. We grew up across the street from each other, and that was the house that was haunted that I always talk about. And I thought it would be really fun to do an episode about some cool ghost stories. So I reached out to her and asked her if she would like to be a guest on the podcast. And I was so happy that she agreed to do it. And we chatted last week on the phone. And what we discovered was that there was an even more important reason that we connected that day. And we will explain it all a little bit later in the episode. So for now, please help me welcome my dear friend all the way from Tampa, Florida, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
It is exciting. I'm just so happy to have you on. And
Yes.
one of the reasons I was like so excited to have you on was because you actually were there with me during so many of those crazy stories. So then, it makes me feel like I'm not nuts. It's not in my head. You actually witnessed a lot of
Right.
it,
Right. Yeah,
right?
you're not crazy. It's okay. Yeah.
I know that's good. Because I think, when you talk about these ghost stories, and I talk about them all the time in the podcast and to my clients and friends, and I
Yeah.
think some people think, okay, that's nice, like, did that
Yeah.
really happen? But
Right.
you've been there with me in that crazy house, and that is what we are going to talk about today, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so like I moved in there, and I think, we were talking about this the other day, and I think it was about 9 or 10 years old because I remember I started grade 6 there with you.
Hmm.
And we celebrated our 11th birthday together because our birthdays are 2 days apart. We're both Libras. So
Yay.
double trouble.
Mm.
And I remember, like, when I was living in that house and especially not having any other kids around, I was so grateful to have you across the street. And we were so close in age. We just really hit it off. We got along so well. And we spent so many like days and nights and evenings together. And you at least were my like safety zone. Your house for me was like a safety zone because every time I was freaked out over there, either we would meet on your driveway, late at night, or I would come over to your house and have dinner, which was lovely. Do you remember us like meeting like on the driveway?
Y- yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I'm terrible with this, like my memory in certain parts of my life for some reason. But I
I'm
do, but I
like
feel
that too.
like, you know, I don't know, like late into the night. I don't even know because I feel like my parents wouldn't have like allowed that. But I mean, whatever.
Oh, we sure did. I'm telling you
Yeah.
right now, we sure did. I
Right.
remember. And the reason I remember is because, well, let me just explain this to everybody. Like that, our houses were in the middle of farm fields. Like there was nothing
Yeah.
around. There was
Yeah.
huge trees. There was no street lights. It was pitch black. And her driveway was a really, really long driveway up a steep hill. And
Hmm.
ours was at the bottom, near the main street. And we used to sit on that driveway. And I'll never forget because it was so dark that I would be like, you would tell me, okay, I've got to go, and I'm like, I have to go home alone across the street in the dark. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I was going into a haunted house. So
Yeah.
double trouble. It
Yes.
was
Yes.
it was not an easy childhood for me. That was a really tough time living in that house,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know?
And it's, other people who had been in the house sensed it as well. I mean, you know.
Yeah. People said it all the time. Do you remember all of our friends? Like everybody used to say, "Oh my God, I'm so scared to go there." And like, I don't want to sleep there and stuff. And I made you guys
Yeah.
anyways, but
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time in there. And I wanted to explain this one particular story to everybody because that is, I think I would have thought I was nuts for sure. But there was a day that you came over and we were standing in my kitchen with my mom, right? Do you remember this?
Mhm. Yep.
And
Yep.
out of, right, it's like, ugh, out of nowhere, we heard something that was so loud. It was like something sliding across the counter in the bathroom. And
Yes.
do you remember you came in with me to check what it was? And we were like, oh my God,
Yeah.
the hairbrush is on the floor. Who
Yes.
moved the hairbrush?
Yeah, and the thing with the hairbrush too is it's a very distinct sound. It's not like, "Hey, what was that?" It's like to hear a
Yeah.
plastic brush or like the back of something plastic go against like laminate. It's a very and quickly slid, like as if someone
Ugh.
threw it down the countertop. Like slid it all the way down, like because there was that long countertop on the one side, right?
Yes,
Like,
there was.
yeah.
Exactly. It was like an L shape. Remember?
Right. And it was
Yep.
it was on the ground in there, and it wasn't like the window was open. It wasn't,
No.
No breeze came in.
That's right.
And
There
it
was
was very
no
distinct.
explanation.
Yeah.
And I want them, to also hear your explanation of that house, like how you felt going into it and what rooms you felt scared in, because it wasn't every single room, right? It was
Yeah.
certain
No.
rooms in that house. And you do remember it really well. So I think that's really cool. So you can go ahead and tell them what
Yeah,
rooms
well,
freaked you out.
well, if you can imagine, so the cellar, and again, I've been in living in the States for a while now, but like we don't have basements here. So I don't, but like to think back now, I'm like, your basement was the quintessential like Saw house horror kill people basement. Like it was just like this
Yes.
completely damp concrete, like it
Oh,
exactly what you would picture in a horror movie, or like where
yep.
someone's being kept alive or something. I don't even know.
Yes.
Chained to a wall
So
and kept alive.
true.
Like there was no like, did not like going in the basement, obviously. And I think, but
Oh,
for the
it's
most part,
awful.
as a kid, you're like, okay, who really does like going in the basement, right? But
Right.
there was a couple of rooms or the kitchen. So being that it was like a farmhouse, a lot of the rooms were off of the kitchen, being like the main kitchen. You walked into the kitchen when you walked in the front door,
Hmm.
and there was the family room was always very bright and light, and we spent a lot of time in there, and that was okay. But there was another room that I guess used to be the dining room, but
I
you guys
think.
use it as like a den or like an office or something. And
Yeah.
that room, you could have the windows open, but it just felt dark. Like I don't
Yes.
know how else to explain it. It just
Heavy.
when you went in there, you're like, you know what? We should go.
I
Like,
don't think I want to be in
I'm
here.
good. I'm good. Yeah.
Hmm.
Just very creaky. Like the house just, I don't know, just always seemed to be moving. Does that make sense?
Yes, it sure does to me.
Like like I don't want to say like breathing, but I wanted to say like it was just this constant sort of,
Energy around,
and
right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's how I always felt. I never felt alone in there. Even if I was standing
mhm.
on the, talking on the telephone, because we had the old plug-in telephones back then. And
Yeah.
I just remember
And we're dating ourselves, yeah.
that's exactly, I know, right? But I do remember like going, oh my God, there's someone behind me. And I would constantly be checking behind me and there was no one there. And
Yeah.
even like, do you remember going up the stairs, how the stairs were so dark and like that really old dark wood. And there was that stained glass door at the bottom that I thought like some, like scary person was going to jump out at me every single time that I would walk by it. Do you remember that
Yeah,
door?
yeah,
Oh,
it is the stuff that horror movies are made of. Like it just
pretty
really
much.
is.
I am so glad you say that just because it makes me feel like, oh my goodness, maybe people are really going to understand when I say I was terrified
Yeah,
as a kid.
yeah,
Like I lived there for 10 years. So for 10
yeah,
years of my life, I spent in full fear.
yeah,
I slept with the blankets over my head. I hated, even being, and my parents were gone quite a bit when we were kids. They'd go for away for the weekend or for a week holiday. And they left, my older brother and I home alone. And, he would be off at work and I'd be at home on the phone with
yeah,
you or someone, one of
mhm,
our other friends crying, like, I hear all this stuff, come get me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
hated it. And you
yep.
know what I find really fascinating? And I was telling, my husband this the other day. We decided, I think it was in like grade 7 or 8, to make an actual movie with our, fellow
Yes.
students in the house.
The horror movie, yeah, yeah,
It was a ghost story movie. Why
yeah.
we came up with that idea, and
Oh,
even at that
I
age,
wonder
like,
where you got that from. I wonder. Yeah.
exactly, like, hello, I knew it was haunted back
Yeah.
then, and we decided to film it in the house. And first of all, it was a
Mhm.
great little movie. The whole school, I think, watched it and they thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But what gave us
That's
the
hilarious.
idea in that, what that would have been like 12, 13, somewhere in there, and we're making a like ghost movie? That's
Well, and I think because
funny.
exactly that, right? Like anyone who'd been to your house just had
Mhm.
that
Creepy feeling.
feeling.
That's
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
exactly. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it'd
Like,
be awesome to make a ghost movie at Karina's house because her house is totally haunted. Like that was
yeah,
the,
that's pretty much
in
what
the
we said,
beginning. Yeah,
right? We
yeah,
said that. Yeah.
yeah,
So then we did it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Now, I got to tell everybody this story because this is one that I may have even talked about it, in another podcast. I can't remember. I have the worst memory. But
Hmm.
the one day we were probably about 16, 17, my parents were gone somewhere and I decided to have a little party. So a bunch of people came over and I don't even know, Cindy, who brought that Ouija board, but someone brought it, right?
Yeah. I
And
don't
what
know.
do we decide to do? So there's a whole bunch of people in the house and they're out in the other, living area and they're in the kitchen and they're drinking. And I think it was like four of us decided to go into that creepy den that was dark like
Yes.
that.
Yes. The
Let's
creepy
try
man.
the Ouija board. So I remember we sat down on the ground. Do you remember this? Like when we sat down, we were all like, there was no table or anything. We were on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember just like, we were starting to get mad at each other because we were like, well, you're moving it. No, you're
Right.
moving it. And we were getting like, first of all, we were getting really scared. And then we were like getting pissed off at each other because we're trying to find like reason of why. And I'm not going to lie, I do remember this. It was starting to go in a little figure eight and it was going pretty damn fast. And all of a sudden, that light in there just like flickered, like on and off, on and off. And then we threw the board because we were
Yeah.
like, screw this shit. We ran out of there. But then we had to collect the board, remember? And we didn't know what to do with it. And then we put it in like the, kitchen area and we just like sat there staring at it. And then tell them what you told me this last week about the board, what your friend
Yeah.
said.
So one of the other girls that was there, a friend of ours, Sonia, her older sister, had, her friends had dabbled in it or whatever, and had said they couldn't get rid of the board because we were like, oh my God, if this has got some sort of spirit in it or something. And like logically, they mass produce this board and it's sold in, Walmart or whatever. I mean, it's clearly, on one hand, how could it possibly have powers? It's a board game.
The
Okay?
logical part. Yeah. Sure.
Right. So you got that side of you, right? And like,
Yes.
okay, we'll just throw it in like the garbage, right? But then
Yes.
Sonia's sister was like, oh no, I had a friend who they were doing Ouija and then they got all freaked out. And so they decided to like have this whole thing where they like burnt the board. They set it on fire and burnt it in like a trash can in the house or something like that.
Oh my God.
And they said for as long as the rest of the time that they lived in the house, anytime you stepped on that part of the floor where they had set this thing on fire to throw it out, the floor was hot. So that as far as she was concerned, there was just no getting rid of it.
Yeah, and then you're telling us this, and I'm like sitting there going, "Oh my God, we did it in my house. This thing is gonna stay like
it. We're done. Yeah,
it was already haunted. I think I just added to the game. I brought in some
now you
more
just open the
visitors.
gate.
Yeah, I pretty much did. And I seriously, like it got worse after. I swear, like I was constantly terrified. I remember, even up in my bedroom, like I would be asleep and all of a sudden I would feel people grab my feet or, oh my God, I hated it.
Nope.
Oh yeah, that was my normal. That was my normal. I remember them tapping on my back and then sometimes I would open my eyes and there would be someone standing at the end of my bed and I would be just crying. And I mean, we had like, those big, thick feather duvets from Germany that my dad had brought back.
Yeah.
And it was so hot, but I would sleep underneath the blanket because I was so afraid to see stuff. And I'm like, I need out of here.
Right.
And, like up until I was like 19, my parents used to say, oh my God, it's in your head. There's nothing wrong here. But when we finally moved out, they told me the truth. Oh yeah, we had all kinds of stuff happen to us. We knew there was something going on here. We heard about it when we bought the place. Oh, thanks.
Oh, are you serious?
No,
I
I'm
don't know
serious.
if you told me that. Oh my God.
Yes. When we moved out, because we had moved to Costa Rica at that point, remember?
Right.
And I remember them finally saying to me, yes, we actually knew about it before we bought the place, but we didn't believe in that and stuff because we're Catholic. And I'm like, Catholic or not, there's still like spirits out there. So you should hear some of the stories that my dad told me about, someone running around the house and him running in his underwear with a shotgun thinking someone had broken in and no, there was no one there. Oh yeah. So at least in a way, it does make me feel better now that they admitted it. But for years, I thought it was in my head and that I was losing my mind. And then I would go to you and say, dude, this happened last night. I'm so scared. And you're like, okay, because you've seen it and you've experienced it with me. So you knew that it was true. So saying it to you was like almost like a relief for me in a way,
Yeah.
God, the house was just I was really happy to move out. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't think I could ever live in a house that is like that ever again. I tell you that right now,
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. Do you think living in that house, and like we had joked, about the Ouija board sort of opening the gate, or whatever, but do you think that had, because a lot of people might think that they see ghosts or they see spirits or whatever, but did that house open up your abilities?
You know what? now, I mean, I think when I look back, I try to understand all of it. And I think, you know, how we always say there's like, you know, a divine timing for things and part of
Right.
our journey. And I do believe
Mhm.
that we were meant to move there for a reason because I absolutely think that it opened up that channel. And I, you know, again, who wants to do this? I didn't want to be a medium, but even as
Right.
young as 9 years old, I could see, and I'll never forget it. And I remember only when we moved into that house did I actually see a ghost for the first time in the first, like, I think, week that we were living there. So I guess I was supposed to go to this house and,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and then everything kind of opened up and happened. And I fought it for years. I didn't even
Mhm.
open up to being a medium until I was, you know, in my mid 30s. It just scared the heck out of me. And
Mhm.
I remember thinking, you know, that fear that I had living in that house, I was afraid that being a medium was going to feel like that. But
Right.
in
Yeah.
fact, it's nothing
Mhm.
like that. It is
Right.
nothing like that. It is actually lovely and beautiful and healing. That's a
Mhm.
totally different thing. That's seeing actual spirits that are, you know,
Right.
stuck in between worlds, really.
And
Yeah.
I will say, and I have read this, that like a lot of the times when you come into these, powers or abilities, or you see them strengthening, is generally around a time of puberty, which it pretty much would have been that age, because we were
Yep.
anywhere between, sixth and eighth grade was when it really, started, or like we'd seen stuff by
Stuff.
then.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then supposedly, and I don't know if this is when your body is also going through another hormonal change, but when you're perimenopausal, so like your late 30s,
Mhm.
early 40s, is sort of another time when you are susceptible to these sort of feelings, or messages,
Yep.
coming forth. You're more open to them during those points. So it's actually very interesting that you just said, I really didn't go, deal with this until my
No.
30s, late 30s, whatever.
Yep.
So there you go.
It's true because I could always see, and in my 20s, of course, they were haunting me still every time I'd go to
Mhm.
any house I was at. Didn't matter, you know, where I went. They
Right,
always seemed to
right.
find me. And so I just kept pushing it away, pushing it away. And then
Mhm.
finally, yeah, I had like a spiritual awakening.
Yep.
And I just remember that everything just spiraled from there. And nowadays, people are waking up, you know, at any age because this is what the world needs right now is a lot of light workers to come forward and shine their light. And
Mhm.
so you find that a lot, like even for me, a lot of my clients lately, they're in their 20s and they're having this awakening. And I think, wow, that's like a miracle. That's
Yeah.
incredible, really. So I love how that's happening.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, because maturity wise, you would think not shut off, but that they're
Just trying
things
to
that
find themselves at that
right,
time.
and like things that are
Mhm.
of material possessions are more important to them, like it's a very different age, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just mentally where they are at that age. So
Yep.
that's actually pretty interesting.
Right. Like, and I think, you know, obviously, I look back now in hindsight and I think, how amazing is it that spirit and the universe put us together? Because we will, again, explain a little bit more about that later on in the episode. But I find it now fascinating to sit back and think, what an incredible intervention because we were meant
Mhm.
to be together.
Yep.
So let's just tell everybody this. Like, so, you know, we had obviously hung out right up until our early 20s. And then I went off and got married, and you went off and got married and moved to Florida. So we kind of just went to two different countries and, you know, really very far apart.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think back then too, I mean, again, we are totally dating ourselves here, but it's not internet like in cell phones and stuff like we have now, where you could just like text somebody, be like, "Hey, how's it going in, Tampa right now," or whatever. Like there was no real way to keep in touch. I mean, like back then it was like you wrote letters to people. Like I mean, honestly, like even
So true.
email was very new. So
Hmm.
it was just, yeah, it just wasn't a way of life to communicate. And so then we easily lost, touch.
We did. So basically, we lost touch for like, you know, close to 15 years because
Yep.
of, you know, the internet and all that stuff. And we just kind of
Yeah.
got carried away with our lives. But then
Right.
I actually forget how we connected again. So I'm going to let you tell everybody because, again, there's my memory.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
I don't forget, because this was like monumental for me, because prior to moving to the States, I was having sensing things that, but at the, largely chalk that up to like, oh, what a weird coincidence, or like, wow, that's creepy, but whatever, like didn't really
Yeah.
think much of it. When I got to Florida, I want to say maybe like after a year or two of being here, I literally thought I was having a nervous breakdown. And I do have to preface this with, my youngest brother is a paranoid schizophrenic and is mentally ill. And I started to think that I was also losing it, essentially, because my brother thought he was hearing voices,
Right.
thought he was getting messages from Jesus, things like this. And I'm not a religious person. As all we like we had said earlier, we grew up Catholic.
Yes.
We went to Catholic school, we went all that business. But I can't say that I don't believe in organized religion. I am a spiritual person. So I thought I was losing my mind, essentially, because I was hearing things that I couldn't understand,
Mm-hmm.
sensing things when certain people got close to me that I didn't understand. And I was haunted, literally haunted by numbers. I can't, and I'm sure a lot of people listening probably get their messages from numbers.
Mhm.
I've met so many people that are like, oh my God, I totally wake up at, like 444 in the morning or whatever,
Yes.
every morning. Like, so, but at the time, I didn't know that was a thing. Okay. So
Right.
at the time, my number was 1234. So 1234. Okay. I could get a
Mm-hmm.
receipt from the store. It was $12.34 or whatever. It was just weird. And so at the time, I was going to become a fitness instructor, and I was at the classes or the lecture or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking like, oh my God, my phone is on. And now I'm going to be that idiot that my phone's going to start going off with a bunch of texts or something while this woman's lecturing. So I go to the back of the class where all the purses and bags are and stuff, right?
Yep.
And I remember looking at my phone, and sure enough, it said 1234. And I cannot explain to you, someone grabbed me from, like, wrapped their arms around me from behind me, hugged me really tight, and said in my ear, "You are meant to be here."
Wow.
And like, I
Giving me
was like,
goosebumps.
right. And so I'm looking around like, what? Because like I know absolutely no one in this class.
Yep.
Like, so in like, you've seen them at other gyms, or like you know of some people, but none of these people are my friends. I don't. And I'm thinking like, completely freaked out right now. And I go back to my seat and I kind of wait, but I'm like sweating. Like, I'm just like, that's messed up. Like, that
Right.
just happened. I totally did not imagine that. Right.
Right.
So we're sitting down at lunch, and I turn to these two girls that I've seen before at like another gym. And I'm like, I know you guys don't know me, and this sounds totally insane, and I tell them what happened.
Yeah.
And I tell them that this number, like, what the hell? And this girl, like just deadpan, like, just looks at me like, dude, angel numbers, duh, like, whatever. And I'm like, what?
What's
Like,
that
and she's
mean?
just like, yeah. And she's like, dude, that's your angels giving you a message. Like, I kid you not. I went home. I want to say it's either that night or the night after. On Facebook, you came up as a suggested friend from, and I don't know if you were calling it divine messages at the time, but it was something about like, know what your angels are saying to you, or something like that. And it was like, what? Like, and like, and you lose touch with someone, and I'm sure a lot of people can appreciate this, that it's kind of like, well, do you just contact them and like, hey, I know we haven't spoken in 15 years, but like, whatever. And
That's
I did that. I was just like, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but like, I hope you can shed some light on this, because I literally think I'm having a nervous breakdown, and like, what can you tell me?
Right.
And you immediately like knew you had all the answers. I felt like so relieved. I mean, I will say I felt terrified, because I was just like, oh, okay, I didn't sign up for this. So like, I don't want to be talking to dead people. I don't want any of that business. But so that freaked me out. But you had said to me, like, listen, this is how you have to learn to sort of like harness this, right? And it's like, you will choose what you allow to come in or not. And that's what I didn't know at the time. I was not grounding. I did not ground myself. I had no idea. I was letting everything hit me. I would go into the shower and just cry and cry and cry and cry.
I remember that.
So that is how we started. And then it was like hours a day on the phone, like,
Yes.
comparing stories, and like, and I remember, oh, actually, you know what? Sorry. I do remember thinking like, she's nuts. Because at the time you
Oh, great.
At the time you had told me you're a medium and that like you could talk to dead people. And I was like, oh my God, this girl completely lost it. Whatever. Like, I don't know what she's been doing the
Okay.
last few years, but my father-in-law had lived with us prior to us moving to the States, and actually prior to us having kids, honestly, so it was quite a while before.
Yeah.
But he had passed away, and it was like, I guess the only person we could really think to like ask you, like, okay, well, if you can really do this, go ahead and try to talk to Greg's dad, because you were not had never really met my husband, because again, we
No.
sort of touched when we had gotten married or whatever, so you knew nothing about him, nothing about his family, that's for sure,
Right.
and there was no way you could have known a lot of this stuff. And even my husband was just like, dude, that's messed up, like there's no way. And so both his parents had actually passed at the time, and it was his mom and his dad that were fighting to talk to you.
Oh my gosh.
Now I remember. And his and they were fighting over like, yeah, like to get your attention.
My gosh. See, now I forget because I
know.
delete a lot of this. I do
Yeah.
remember a couple of things that stand out to me. And I guess maybe I'm hearing it now to have this memory, but or he's actually in fact here and he's telling me this,
Right.
but I remember saying to you, look, all I see is a lot of red wine and liverwurst.
Yeah, yes.
Liverwurst or liver paste or liverwurst.
Yes.
And you're like, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm seeing that. And you said, Karina, because every time he would come over, I had to have that in the fridge for him. And I was like,
when he lived with us, that was like, older single man like meal. Like
that's right.
That's protein, right?
Red
Like
wine and liverwurst. That's
red
it.
wine and liverwurst, of course.
Sure.
And cheeses, and I remember you even like knowing that my son had liked steak just like my father-in-law and stuff. And again, like, you've never met my kids. There was
Right.
no like way for you to know this stuff. It was really bizarre, but it like just opened this door, to like this world of possibilities, or like a scary world.
Yeah.
And which sent me into my sort of journey.
And I remember, when I was actually reading for you that time, that I did say something along the lines of, he has become one of your guides and he's watching over you, and that he was going to guide you through this next stage of your life, like this healing stage, this spiritual awakening. And I knew without a doubt that he would always be around you guys, around your kids. And I just knew. And I think it was incredible because I didn't know him.
And it's funny, and that's the thing, is so he wasn't in my husband's life for a lot of his childhood because his parents were divorced.
Yep.
And when he was older, we had an opportunity to take him in to our home, which we did, which gave my husband valuable, years, made up for all the years that they had lost, basically.
I love that.
And he was like my buddy. Like, we were besties. Like the day we met was like very much like, oh yeah, I like this one. And he hated like all of Greg's girlfriends.
Keeper.
We hit it off day one, whatever. And there was a situation, one day my daughter nearly drowned, and I know he saved her. I know too. And so here's what's so messed up, Karina. So after we spoke this week, my neighbor, who is a good friend of mine. Okay, so let me preface this story with my father-in-law is from a very, very, very small village in Quebec. And I mean, when I say small, I mean like the church is like the most happening thing going on. And like everyone, it's 1,000 people, maybe 1,000 people. It is a farming community. It is very small. Okay.
Right.
So one of my old neighbors, very good friend of mine, sends me a text and he says, hey, if I have to mail this letter to Canada, how many stamps do I need? And he shows me the address, and it was the village my father-in-law is from.
Okay.
And I was like, what?
That's what I just said. What?
Yeah. And I thought he was like joking. I'm like, okay, dude, I don't like, there's no reason you even be mailing anything to anybody there. Like, that's how small this town is, right? And I go, dude, like legit, this is the address? And he's like, yeah. He's like, can you tell these people to get with the times and start doing stuff on the internet? Like, I can't believe I have to mail in a warranty.
Oh my gosh.
Laughing, but I'm like, dude, it's literally a village. Like, but I just thought, how weird that my father-in-law, after you and I discussed him, I get,
Uh-huh.
and so just to be like, hey, are we even talking about the same city? Like maybe there's another city called the same thing in Quebec, which is very possible, right?
Right. Mhm.
And I look up that city on the map, and I kid you not, and I took a picture just to show you, it was 1,234 miles away. It was
Oh
literally
my
12:34.
gosh.
What in the actual hell? Like
Yes.
there is just you can't make that up. Okay. I'm sorry. Like it was just so bizarre. And then it was like,
Love
okay,
it. That's
we
a clear
clearly
sign.
whatever was bugging you to get in touch with me or whatever it
Mhm.
was, this is meant to happen, you know?
This is totally meant to happen
Yeah.
because at first, like I said, I really did think, oh, wouldn't that be cool? Let's share some, funny ghost stories and stuff so people don't think I'm actually nuts for what I saw when I was a kid. And then after our conversation the other day, I remember sitting back and going, oh my God, that's what it is. And I'm going to explain that now. The real reason that I believe that we're doing this today is, and that your father in law is pushing you
Mm,
as one of your spirit guides, because you kind of fell off your spiritual journey a little bit.
yes.
And,
Yeah.
every time we would speak, and obviously life happens and we get so busy. And I saw you, I think it was last summer or the summer before. And, life gets busy. But every time you and I have ever spoken, it's always been about this stuff and like cool things that have happened and things that we
Right.
bought and all that. And
Yeah.
I think that your spirit team decided that, hey, enough. She is just as good at this and needs to be working, doing this and helping so many people. And she's not fulfilling her purpose.
Right.
And so I got off the phone the other day with you and I just sat back and I went, oh my God, that's what it is. That's what this whole episode is about, is
Mhm.
to explain divine intervention. This is
Right.
not in your hands. This is not in my hands.
Mhm.
Clearly, your spirit guides decided that this was the way to have you come out of your shell and explain to everybody that you have this ability as well. And you got to look back, Sid, like really, they put us together. Our birthdays are 2 days apart. We spent all of our childhoods together.
Mhm.
It would explain so much to me to know that you are, in fact, a healer, a intuitive, a psychic, a medium, everything
Mhm.
combined in one. No surprise there. They put
Mhm.
us together for a reason. And, you decided to kind of veer off the path for a bit. And it happens to a lot of people. But I really believe that they reached out to me and I just kept seeing your face in front of my mind's
Yeah.
eye going, there's Cindy again. I'm like, wait, I guess I'm going to ask her. And if
Yeah.
she thinks I'm crazy to ask, then I'm crazy to ask. But
Yeah.
well, I'm going to do it anyways. And
Right.
now when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, this is
Right.
why. I think that because you were so afraid to kind of let people know what you do and who you
Yeah.
are, that here I
Mhm.
am saying, come on the podcast,
Yeah.
tell the world that you're doing this and not be fearful of it, be proud of it, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because every time that we talk, it's bizarre. It's like you recharge your, or it's so funny because it was like all of a sudden people will reach out to me that want a reading or something,
Yep.
and it's like I've literally put my cards in storage. I can't even get to them if I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
because we are now traveling. And I've had such a strong, especially after speaking to you, to go get myself a deck, to have a deck, because I'm like,
Yep.
if someone does need me. So sorry, I guess I should explain why I kind of fell off
Yeah. Tell them
the
why. Because
wagon, if you will.
the
So
wagon, I fell off the
yeah,
wagon
fell off
spiritually.
the wagon. So I was, doing quite well for myself. And
You
it and
really
I have
were.
to say, like, I was not comfortable with mediumship in the sense that I could see anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I physically could feel how someone died.
Yep.
I could, completely sense it just and just such so again, like in the beginning you think you're nuts, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
so much weird, like so many weird things happen, and then you're like, no, this is like, I'm not imagining this, like this is happening, and just weird coincidences or things that would happen during readings, like just I can't
Like, yeah,
can't
things you
can't
can't
explain it,
deny,
right? You can't
right?
explain it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can't explain it, but you also can't deny it.
That's,
So much is about literally trusting.
it's all about trust.
Right. And I
I'm going to
lost
say
that.
that
I
right now.
totally lost that. Right.
And that's why I'm here to help you bring it back. And that's why I'm a teacher, right? I love to teach not only healings, but I love to teach mediumship and psychic abilities and psychic development. And I
Yeah.
think that I do this, 5 days a week full time. This is my job. And I learned years and years ago to just be the channel. I wasn't trying to get in my head and try to give somebody a great reading. Like I didn't put that pressure on myself. I would let go and I would just quiet my mind and I would just almost, yeah, well, channel everything that was coming out. So if anybody sits with me in a reading, I'm known to be very blunt. I blurt out everything that I'm told to because my job is to help people live their best lives. And I don't sugarcoat anything, but I
Right.
do always trust every little detail that comes out. And I think, what's important is that those little tiny snippets of information. So it could be a flash of a red car or
Right.
a flash of
Mhm.
cheese or something. Like I was seeing,
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
liverwurst
Right.
or,
Yeah.
liver
Right.
pate
Which
with your,
exactly sounds crazy, right?
it
Yeah,
sounds
totally.
crazy, but I learned that many years ago to just trust it, say it.
Hmm.
And because I have such a close relationship with my spiritual guides and my team, if I don't understand something, I ask for clarity and I always hear it. So now that you're back on the journey, and I want to say that you're back on the journey, because I know you are. Um,
Right, we'll
this
see.
is where, no, I'm gonna, yeah. So I feel like now that you're back on the journey, that I'm in your life to kind of push you to that trust and to that comfort zone with this so that you don't ever fear being wrong. Because if I went into any reading fearing that I was going to be wrong, I'm going to listen to my ego. And yeah, I'm going to
Right.
probably give some pretty, inaccurate information. I
Hmm.
go into every single client because I mean, you got to remember, I only know a first name and a phone number, and I'm working all over the world now. I don't know who these people are, Cindy, at
Right.
all. I
Right.
have
It's
to
not like you can research
trust,
them or something. Yeah.
never. I have
Right.
to trust that my spirit guides and their spirit guides put us together so I can help them as best as I can.
Right.
And so when I go into those readings, I literally will just say, this is what I hear. This is what you need to do. This is, stuff from your past that needs to be healed. Those kind of things. I just blurt it all out because I've gotten to that place of trust that I never question anymore what I'm hearing. I just go with it. This is what I hear.
Okay. Right.
And, you know, I think for you, getting out of that fear of how people are going to view you. And I
Yeah.
know that we even discussed this week that you are afraid of judgment. And I
Yeah.
said to you, did I not say to you, look, I am judged every single day for what I do from old friends, from family members, from, people I just meet. Like I do have not my guard up, but I'm always like prepared for it. It's like I'm in fight mode because I got my little boxing gloves up. And I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a negative way. I just mean I'm always prepared that someone is going to judge what I have to say about
Right.
this
Or
or
that you
or
have to
judge me for
justify
what I'm
yourself.
doing. Yeah, I feel like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, I'm just a mom, but yeah, I happen to talk to dead people. And I think that it's true. But, I want to walk around with a t-shirt that really says I see dead people because I think that's hilarious because it's the
Yeah.
truth. But,
Right.
I'm so used to having people go, oh my God, either they want to talk to me and like they want to understand it, or they repel from me because they're scared of it. And it's like, oh my God, you're evil, you're a bad person. How could you do this? And
Right.
I think no matter what, I'm never going to compromise who I am in any way for anyone ever again in my life. I am 45 years old. I have learned so many tough lessons over my lifetime. And I want to live the rest of my life with my head held high and put my, head down on the pillow at night and feel good about my life and feel that I've done good things to help others and stuff. If people want to judge me for what I do, if healing and helping others is wrong, then I'll be wrong. That's okay.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
never going to compromise that. So if you could get to that place of acceptance of you are going to have the people who are going to cheer you on and think that you're doing a wonderful thing, and you're going to have the others who are going to, want to crucify you. But
Mhm.
as long as you stand in your truth and feel like it's coming from a really good place of love, that everything you do is for the love of humankind, how can that ever be wrong? Right? Just
Yeah.
get
I mean,
past that.
and like, when you say it like that, it's like, yes, absolutely, but clearly there is a part of me that can't let go, or like sort of can't fully wrap my head around that. And this is why you're like, no, this is it. You're back on the way. And there's part of me that's going,
Yeah, well, yeah, I know that's the ego part, right? The fear.
yeah.
It's all fear. But I'm looking at it this way. I knew that when we were going to sit down tonight to do this, that this was your, and I don't want to sound cheesy, but it was like coming out party. Um, it's that, hey, I know, right? I love that song. It is kind of that coming out of, hey, we're basically putting this out there for a lot of people. And you and I both know that there's a decent amount of friends, mutual friends of ours, that will probably listen to this.
Yeah.
And they're going to find out who you are and what you do. And I think it's so important to finally just take that leap of faith and know that we're doing this for a reason, and your spirit guides have a bigger and better plan for you. Now, your job will be over the next couple of weeks to kind of push through those fears and allow yourself to really come forward and be who you need to be. And with that, the trust and everything will just fall into place, and it'll become so effortless that you don't even think about it anymore. Because there was a point where you were doing all this and it was effortless. I know it because you and I talked about it years ago. And then sure, somebody comes in and rocks the boat a little bit with your ego, and then all of a sudden you go into fear mode. And I'm not going to say that's never happened to me. Like, maybe I've had my, fears kind of come to the surface in other ways, because you go, God, what if they don't like what I said or whatever? But I still do what I do.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. And I believe in my guides and my spirit team so much. And I can't wait for you to see that. So I know that you're even having those moments right now thinking, oh my God, how am I going to even do this? Is this supposed to be this way? I think once you actually listen back to the episode yourself, and others like our friends and stuff listen to it, I think you're going to feel like, yeah, actually, this is what I'm supposed to do. I know it is. I know in my entire being that this is who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. And that's why I think they're pushing you today. And they pushed you
Right.
all week with me.
Okay. So now,
Yes.
I don't know that means reading again per se. I
Mm.
have something that's been nagging at me, a blog or whatever, something I want to start
Absolutely.
that I do feel would be of help to people, explaining my journey as far as like health and weight and, just mentally. So it isn't so much that I feel that like I need to read per se, but
Teach, share,
yeah, can I let people know
guide.
my story? Can I and then there's that other side, like you said, of me just being able to let go and be vulnerable and open up and expose your weaknesses so that people can relate to you. And this is where I struggle. I believe you when you say something has to happen, and I'm here.
Yes.
Something's got to give, and I'm here to help people. I just can't put my finger on what that is or how to do it. Does that
And
make
that's
sense?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely it does.
So I'm
And
waiting,
get it.
and I get what you're saying. I believe what you're saying. Like I do feel that something is coming to a head, and that I am supposed to be helping people. Now,
Mhm.
what that means by doing readings, that's what I don't feel as sure about. I want to teach people. I feel that I've been through enough stuff in my life or my journey to like help people in a different way, not so much doing readings.
Right.
So, and it's funny today because you keep telling me like you need to be of service to people, blah blah. So I'm like,
Sorry.
so I was telling you that my cards are in storage, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go buy myself a deck of cards so that whatever. And
Mhm.
and again, we're Canadian, right? So we're living in the States,
Yep.
and so it was like today when you're like, oh yeah, those are Canadian or whatever. I was like, really? I was like,
I was
I totally
supposed to
knew
have them.
that.
I was supposed to have these
They were
Canadian
meant for
cards.
me. Yeah. So they're Canadian cards for Canadian people, right? Like I was so, thrilled that I was like, see, I went in there and the first thing they say to you is like, hey, can we help you find anything? And I was like, no, it'll jump off the shelf. I'll know,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Okay.
And it did.
So,
And it
oh, I believe it. No, the
did.
funny thing as you're sitting here telling me this, I'm like laughing inside because all I hear is she thinks she's not going to do readings someday, but she buy a deck of cards. I'm like,
Yeah, and I'm
hello.
not saying I'm like against the idea. It's
In
I
your
don't
right,
know.
in your timing. Let me just
Yeah.
mark my words though tonight. Okay. Everybody's
Okay.
listening right now.
Okay. Well, you're recording this now,
Yes.
so it's like,
Yeah. I'm holding you accountable.
legit. Yeah.
I actually know that you will be. And I do think, and I'm saying that, like I really I do. The blog that I think I had pulled cards for you this week too, and it came up with
Yeah.
writing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
worst memory. But yes, I remember
Yeah.
saying, oh my God, I see like a blog or whatever. And so I know that that's a part of you that is like a story needs to be told, and you do need to share your journey, and you are going to help people, like you're really going to help a lot of people with that blog. However, I feel like that'll lead you into where you need to go, and Reiki led me into that doorway, and then once that doorway opened, it was like everything just fell into place. So same thing for
Right.
you, as I feel like with the blog, it's going to be your little gateway, your doorway into
Mhm.
where you need to be. So I just
Mhm.
mark my words. Yeah, we'll
Mhm.
see.
I'm
Yeah.
saying to you, yeah, I'm never really gonna do readings again.
And
And
I'm saying never say never. Now you're hearing it in your head. Never say
right. So if
never.
history is gonna repeat itself right
Yep.
now, and
I
I'm
know it's coming back to you. I know. Like I said,
damn it, she
I
caught me.
I know that
Okay.
this will be the gateway in. Okay. The
Okay.
blog.
Well, it's documented. It's now documented.
Yes.
So
So
we can do a follow-up talk in
ooh, we will
a couple months.
definitely do that. You
Let's
get
do
your
that.
blog going, and then, yeah, we will
Okay.
totally do a follow up. So, everybody remember that.
Okay.
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 I want to leave you all with this today. Everything and everyone you meet is for a reason. The universe places the right people at the right time in our lives to help us fulfill our divine life purpose. I will be forever grateful to you, Cindy, for being there for me through the ups and downs of life. And it's been 35 years of knowing each other. And I really do truly look forward to where our lives will take us together in the future.
Hmm. Oh. And I'm thrilled to get back on the train, the journey with you, and do this together.
Well, you don't have a
We,
choice.
we
I'm dragging you with me now.
right. Yeah, we shouldn't have lost touch in the first place. So it's,
There you go.
we're
Right?
being forced back together because we're supposed to be together. So that's
It's 100% true. So, I want to thank you all so much for joining us today on the Divine Messages podcast. And Cindy, thank you so, so, so much for spending this time with me today and for sharing your journey with all of us.
oh, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. And I guess I'm going to see you in 90 days and we're going to see who's right.
Oh, we shall. We
Yeah, we
shall.
shall.
We
It's a date.
shall. Done. Until next time, everyone. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the Divine Messages interpretations. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.